probably more than one Newbury Historical Commission's roundtable event for updating our Historical Commission map. We have a map that's multi-fold unit that we hand out at the town hall, but especially at the schoolhouse. When visitors come from far and wide, we hand them this about an 18-inch wide map with spots all marked off on it with focus points in town with information. And from time to time, we keep getting comments that some of it's wrong, or some of the dots are in the wrong place, or a few things are inaccurate, other things that are missing. So we decided to pull from the crowd and the people in town and invite everybody in to get them to feed us the information so we can update the map. And this is an expansion, stepping into the electronic age where now the map will be on our website. It'll be electronic versions where eventually, possibly like other towns are now doing, like you see in Lawrence, where you can take your handheld device and walk to different parts of the town, and your handheld device talks to you. So you go into the mill districts in Lawrence, and you can have your own guided tour. But basically, an accumulation of information on all the historic sites in town, and we figured the best thing to do is to have a roundtable event and pick everybody's brain as to where things are, add things to the map, and finish anything that's already on the map and correct it. So we circulated flyers to the town hall, the banks, and handed out to people and spread about the media, different events, and asking for information. And we printed 300 maps, and everybody, all the maps are gone. But apparently everybody wanted a copy of the map, but nobody mailed any of them back in. So now everybody's got a map to study and a hint. So a couple people have sent in additional information and great, accurate historic information. But I'm looking for, to start out tonight's meeting, if anybody had brought corrections or additions to the existing map that we could start talking about tonight. And I wasn't, go ahead.
Mrs. Little did bring up Little's Bluff.
Little's Bluff.
Which is not listed, and it was on the east side of the Parker River, and she has two pictures to show.
Okay.
But, and that's
my property.
so I think that would be a good one to have on.
Yep, you can just continue with that. Fred, do you have more on that?
Who is it?
No, I don't have any more on that one. I got a lot of stuff here.
Okay. So Little's Bluff, so we know where that exactly is on the map?
Yeah, we know where it is, yeah.
Okay.
It's basically, as you look downriver, it's on the right, it's the ledge outcropping, right beyond the country club.
Okay, okay. All right.
Kind of obvious.
Was it named for a family that was there, or how did it become to be?
Anybody know? I have no idea. That was mostly plumbers over there, so I don't know. Yeah, well,
So how did Little's Bluff get its name?
you
We
wonder.
can ask her, actually. I'm surprised it's not on here, but
I have a feeling that, for instance, Dole's Island and Cape Merrill, they were named after, members of families that came over as they came upriver. And Little's Bluff is real obvious there. Could easily be how it got named.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I asked my uncle, how come there were so many Littles in town?
Little, yeah.
And he said, years ago, a seagull flew over and left a little here. A little there. That was Herbert.
and she does say here the Dole Little House next to Little's Bluff above Town Law.
Next to.
So
it's on the north side of the park.
No, that's right.
yeah, she's got it.
That's wrong.
She's got it written as the east on the top. But then on the other side, she mentions it again. in association with the Dole Little House. It's a little.
Yeah,
Those may be the little.
I guess I remember going.
Channing, I have a 3-foot wide panoramic that probably includes Little's bluff.
Little's Bluff.
It's this tall, about that wide.
Okay.
It's an antique, it's original one.
Okay.
And she
If
has,
we needed, I could zoom in and,
We'll have to continue the research on Little's Bluff.
yeah, she has 2 photos also, so she's.
Okay,
On the cover here,
okay,
there's a photo looking at Marston's Wharf here, and it's labeled First Settlers Landing. That is not First Settlers Landing. That's Marston's Wharf. It's right from the bridge looking down. I've seen this
that's where the
picture many
ferries
times.
were, wasn't it? That's where the ferries came.
No, the ferry was on the other side of the road where the orange house is.
No, he means
It was on the dock
Carlotta, the
there. on the left
Carlotta.
side.
Pardon me?
That's where the Carlotta.
Yeah, oh yeah, Carlotta docked at Marston's Wharf, yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's what you
Okay.
mean by ferry. Oh, yeah, I call it excursion boat.
Okay, yeah, right there.
so we'll have to.
So that
we're
picture
gonna
is-
relabel that
Yeah.
from First Settlers Landing, and we'll have to get a better picture of First Settlers Landing, and mark that Marston's Wharf.
Yeah.
What else do you have on your list, Fred?
Oh, God. Oh,
Just pick
God.
one.
Come on, give somebody else a chance to say something.
All
This is
right.
like town meeting, I don't like to take it.
There's visitors in the crowd, I look up.
Fred, we've all seen you at town meeting, that isn't going.
And he took 100 in the handouts.
Nancy,
Filled them up. Filled them
you're
up.
picking on me already.
How about somebody else? Somebody else want to start with a correction or an addition to the map?
Thurlow's Bridge,
Thurlow's
It's not there,
Bridge.
right?
it's not on there.
Thurlow's Bridge, Middle Road.
It's the first crossing of Parker River, first bridge crossing of Parker
Do you know
River.
the year? Offhand?
What year?
1650.
Oh, it's in Coffins.
Yeah, I think it's 1650.
And it was, you had to pay, it was a turnstile.
Yeah, well, you didn't have to pay. He charged for the animals.
Right, right. The livestock, you had to pay for the
It was
livestock.
basically because they were putting the livestock out on the marshes.
Okay.
To feed in the marshes. So he charged-
Common ground.
Yeah, he's in charge to.
So we need to get Thurlow's Bridge on the map.
Where would that be, Fred?
Well, Middle Road and Parker River.
Middle Road where it crosses the Parker River, just by Governor Dummer Academy.
69.
Oh.
Wardway Boathouse.
Yeah, right, it's right next to that, right?
Okay, so that's number 69.
Yeah.
Do we know anything about the Wardway Boathouse? Is it on the list?
I think it was. I did see it.
What number is it, Jim?
69.
Right, yeah, right, 69.
Yeah,
There you
we got
go.
all of them wrong.
Okay, well, Ordway,
Yeah.
Ordway Boathouse, Middle Road at the Parker River, piling still visible. Now, was that for building boats or storing them? Do we know anything about that?
I assume it's the building.
Okay,
For sure. I mean, you have a section of, the mouth of Plum Island River is called Oddways,
okay,
so, he's marine.
okay, okay. How about another correction?
How about an addition?
All right,
Yeah.
We have a life-saving station still standing on Plum Island. And it's privately owned, but if you look at it, it is very obviously a life-saving station. Still standing, it's almost to the Newburyport line, but it is in Newbury.
now originally that was before the Coast Guard. It was
I'm sure it's
called-
been moved a few times.
It was called the, like, Plum Island Life Saving, it was before the Coast Guard,
Yeah.
I don't know, were they ever part of it? Was the fire
Oh,
department
yeah, no,
part
that
of
Coast
it?
Guard took that over, yeah.
What was the tie-in with the fire department? Wasn't there, was it a
No idea.
run? Was, okay, maybe I'm just thinking of something
Surfman?
else.
Surfman?
It had an it was before the Coast Guard, it was like a town
It was the.
building. And it
Yeah,
was
but nothing to do,
life-saving.
nothing to do with the fire department. I don't think it had anything to do with the fire department.
Where is it?
The,
Life-saving station.
I bet the custom house can fit in on that one.
I thought it was 53rd, yeah. It was
Yeah,
53rd.
it's right up there,
You can tell by the skull thing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's still there.
It's very obviously a
The old
municipal
photos
building.
show that, yeah, it shows the skull thing on the building. Unmistakable.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we'll have to research that more. Life-saving station on Plum Island.
Did you put a dot on it, Fred? Did you put a dot?
I've got this whole, yeah, I got, not a dot, I got an arrow, yeah.
Whatever.
Janice, I'll send you anything I have.
Does anybody have anything, go around the table? Somebody, the end of the table over there, we haven't heard from you tonight.
Fred has all my notes.
And we've been on one side of the town, any Byfield notes?
I have one here from Joni Puritan.
Carrington, yeah?
Your committee missed a page of my questions in Byfield alone. One 1700s house marked on the tertiary list covers 1630 to 1930, is at 7 Forest Street. You went to a party there.
That was to me.
That was for you? Okay. Some signs are still around. The house was marked at 1700 or earlier by the above-mentioned inventory. I don't know where the inventory is. Oh, it must be the tercentenary list. And it still has a sign on it. A Revolutionary soldier named Oliver Goodrich lives there. He served as George Washington's bodyguard. So she's asking if we have the tercentenary list. See what it covers.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
My father had bought that house and restored it for Mary Livermore after the fire, restored it, and he lived there, yeah.
So where exactly is it?
It's on Forest
7 Forest Street?
It
Okay,
is
let's
7.
check. No, then that helps.
It's up to you.
I'll slide forward.
Now, I assume, you know, there's tourists that are using this map a lot, right? People who probably traced back to Newbury or whatever.
A lot, we get a lot of that into the schoolhouse.
And
is
to me-
people coming back.
To me, the cemeteries should be on here, and quite a few of them are not.
I was gonna say that.
Okay.
What are the qualifications to be on the list? Like, should the burying ground be on this?
It's casual, well, that's why we're here, so.
We need to have it on.
The Evergreen Cemetery on Cottage Road is not listed here.
Okay, Evergreen Cemetery on Cottage Road.
Yeah, the Newbury Neck Burying Ground, or whatever it's called, on 1A at Newbury Neck Road is not on here. And that's where most of the plumbers are buried, to be honest.
Fred, sorry to interrupt you. Chris had started to work on a fix, and he has burial grounds. So let me read them, and you tell me if we're missing one. How's that?
Okay.
First Parish Burial Ground. Burial ground of the first settlers.
Yeah, that's on.
That's here.
Evergreen Cemetery, Newbury Neck Cemetery,
Yeah.
Byfield Parish Cemetery.
Well, that's in Georgetown, but yeah,
Part of
there's a
it's-
conduit,
I
yeah.
thought only part of it was in Georgetown.
Well,
I think the entrance is in Georgetown, but there's a
Yeah.
part that's in.
That's when we were talking
But-
about.
What about
There's
the
the-
period burial ground next to the church is in Byfield? I think that's what he,
Yeah, on the,
on the other side of the
Yes.
road.
right.
It was, so there's two cemeteries in Byfield. There's the very, very early one, which the Hannibal Moody was the first person to be interned
They're
there.
right adjacent to each other though, right?
Across the street.
Right, across the street, yeah. The Hannibal Moody from the Moody House, she was the first person to be interned there in 1705.
There's also the Thomas Parker Cemetery, which is adjacent to the First Parish.
True, it's a different name, true.
Oh, where the building was?
But that's not historical, that's not historical.
No, but people like to walk them. Yeah, they like to walk.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
they all should be on.
So what's the Byfield one that's missing again? What's it called?
You said Thomas
No,
No,
No, that's
Byfield.
the-
Byfield.
Byfield.
South Byfield.
But it's really South Byfield.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's right next to the Byfield Parish Church.
Yeah, but it was always South Byfield,
Yeah, okay.
name, South.
We'll have to check in the exact wording on that.
Okay, I'm just trying to write some notes, you know, I'm the secretary.
So-
Yeah, didn't you?
So is that it for burial grounds? Because,
I know, I know. And what's?
is that it for burial grounds?
That's all we have for burial
Except for
grounds.
private
that
ones.
he wrote.
Yeah, we,
That's
we,
why I
yeah,
said.
we also have,
You know,
Oh, Marky Mark's
That's
too.
all I know of.
yeah, we have Plummer's Tomb
where's that?
right next to my property, within 30 feet of my property. Dick Cunningham used to take people down there
Way back
on tours.
Plumber's Tomb?
Plummer's Tomb.
So that's on the
Marky
map.
Mark, they call it Marky Mark's too. I gave him a deed shortly before he died that he had never seen that piece.
It's interesting, it's in the middle of the woods, and people say, why did he ever put it here? You have to think back. At the time that was developed, there was no woods, and it had a gorgeous view of the marsh and everything else.
Hi, welcome.
Since I'm from the north, you know, a little bit.
No problem.
Yeah. But, and there may be others around, I don't know, I bet there are.
Seat over there, wherever you'd be comfortable.
You do?
We have our, we put a cemetery on our property. yeah.
No, but I mean, is it old?
No.
Oh, no.
So what's, okay, so we have the South Byfield, what's the one that Nancy said, what's it called?
Which one?
The one where the parish out with the,
Thomas Parker.
That's on High Road.
yeah, it's right next to the old. Actually, I have the stupid, I have the map, I have the map. You got copies of them?
Isn't it Baywood?
If we wanted, is the historian Joni Purington just arrived, so I wanted to we were just talking about the house on Forest Street.
Oh, good. I sent Ron that because it has a plaque on it and it was tricentennial.
Yeah, because we were wondering who went to the party.
Email.
It was to welcome
said I might
the
do.
people there. You went there, you don't remember?
I don't remember, did we go anywhere before that?
Yeah.
I
Because,
remember.
I mean, I guess
It's that little house on, that's, sure that, it's somewhere on the left.
1700.
Speaking of Forest Street again, we don't have, is the power generating station on Forest Street on the map?
Yeah, so this
For the trolley?
Oh,
There's still one remaining structure to that there, isn't there?
yeah.
There's one brick building,
Yeah.
but the original power generating station for the Georgetown, which you would travel all from the tip of Newburyport over to Haverhill through Georgetown, the power generating station was on Forest Street.
No, we used to live
The car barn was just over the line in Georgetown until it burned down. Or somewhere near the Byfield Georgetown line, but it burned down not too far after they built it, I believe.
I know
But
most.
that was a main thoroughfare for the trolley, which would come down and come through where the post office
there. Yeah, we
is,
did,
and
we put
through
that down.
downtown Byfield, and you'll go down to Governor Dummer,
But that's gonna
take a left, and then head over to Old Town from there.
Because on the map, it's,
I found information about it in a railroading magazine, which we'll have to transcribe onto the map, but it'd be interesting to show the trolley lines. There was numerous lines. You could travel from Ipswich,
but those are pretty good.
and the crossroads were basically Georgetown. But there was a branch that went as far as towards Plum Island, towards Newburyport, and came down through Governor Dummer down to Georgetown. You could go from that point to Ipswich or branch even to Danvers on a trolley, and then go as far west as well into Groveland and Haverhill on a line. The trolley had a short-lived life due to the arrival of the automobile not too soon after they completed and got all the branches set up, minus one or two of the car barns burning down. The automobile came along and put them swiftly out of business right after they built it all. Down at the Byfield Mills, I've located two pieces of original trolley track. still sitting at the Byfield Mill building along with the railroad ties. The Byfield trolley could not, the Georgetown trolley that came through Byfield, when it got to the bridge, could not make that sweeping arc. And it came through, followed the road down Central Street, but once it got to the bridge, it couldn't make the turn, so it had to go into a sweeping arc in front of the mill building, up what we call Mantis Field. Somewhere, I'm trying to determine whether it was in front of or behind the stone wall. But it did not, at that point, when I read, it could not make the turn and stay on Central Street. It had to get off because of the arc in the road. And so on from there. So that was some of my recent research work on the Georgetown trolley.
The switching station was on Chute Street, right? Right on the town line, Byfield, Georgetown?
Yes.
That's what they, that's
Well,
what
they had built, there was a car barn, car yard.
Okay, yeah.
And I think, I'm straining right now, but I think that's the one that burned down.
Oh.
And then they moved it to central Georgetown from there.
All right, so there was another one after that?
But,
That was the street that your house whisperer, the guy that came and gave the talk here, was saying that Chute Street, obviously the highway wasn't there, and all the mill workers used to walk straight down Chute Street over to the mills.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
crossing.
The oldest mills were in Rowley,
Really?
the 1600s.
What they make?
There were three of them. They were, one was, I don't know which was first, but the house is still there, one of the Gummers lived in it later, but they had a fulling mill, which is what they do to linen. I mean, they make cloth, and they had a grist mill, and they had a sawmill. So, and David Mountain, I think, was very good at knowing all that. But it was, those aren't in Byfield, but they were then. They're just around the corner.
Did you know where in Rowley, John? Where they were?
Yes, on Glen Street, across from, just
Oh.
before you get to Route 1.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And the oldest bridge is there.
Yes.
It's back to the 1600s.
Yes.
Yeah, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Jenny, we have photos of the ribbon cutting ceremony on the old Parker River Bridge on 1A.
Okay.
And you can see the Model Ts and stuff sitting there at the ribbon ready to go across.
Uh,
And behind them, next to this thing with the lobster on top called pavilion or something like that. Anyway, sitting next to the pavilion is the trolley.
Okay.
From Newbury.
Yeah, that was the end of the line, that was the end of the line.
That was the end of the line.
That became Marston.
Yeah, so it was still running when, that one was still running when.
So the
when
trolley
bridge
went
was-
down towards that end of town also?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it came
Ended at the
right
bridge.
down
Right down
1A.
Plum Island, too.
Came down
I
1A.
knew it went to Plum Island, I
Oh,
knew it
yeah.
went to Newburyport, so it also came down 1A
All the
to
way
South Green.
to the river.
Okay, to
Just
the
stopped
river.
at the river, that was the end of the line.
Yep, and that's where the excursion boat took them further, yep.
Okay, okay. Everybody's getting.
We have photos of that, the ribbon cutting ceremony.
Okay, this,
How far back were you?
I got it, so you can watch it.
we have, this is wide open. You
I
can-
mean, are you including Victorian houses?
We're more in landmarks in town, but we're more than willing to record anything at this point for a record-keeping system, so by all means,
There are
go ahead.
Quite a few landmark Victorians.
Okay. Well,
Do you have one?
No, I just looked at this today.
Oh,
But I've only done our end.
yeah.
I got a long list.
Oh, good. Oh, well, that's good.
But
Yeah,
go
just
ahead.
Whenever
email it to
you're-
us or something, I'll make sure this is Jay. You
Uh,
may have them on, you already have records on a lot of those with the inventory. Some of these houses, you know.
Any
can't have-
information you get is great information.
Yeah.
Do you have the tricentennial list? Because I think that's a basis of everything. That was what went from 1630 to 1930. And they put signs up on all the houses. Two are left. And that's, I think, a base list to start with and research. Because that's in some kind of archive somewhere, state, I would think. Because it tries something. Yeah.
Not for person.
Well,
don't mind.
I think that has the logo.
Go ahead.
Oh, all right.
Number
okay.
27.
Number 27.
No.
Shorts Hollow, that ought to be moved over, closer to Hayes Street and Newman Road. That hollow went from Newman Road, Newman Road wasn't put in until 1846 or something. But at 57 Lee's Bridge, Short lived there, and he put the first mill there. Well, he put a grist mill there. So that was all Shorts Hollow. From there, all the way to Low Street. Shorts lived on Low Street. And then many years later, like 1819, they ran an electrical line through. And they called that line the Short Line, because it went through Shorts Hollow. And it went up over Old Town Hill, over to Kent's Island, and then that's how they got electricity to the Parker River, across the Parker River.
Okay.
So it really should be shifted to be more in that corner of Hayes Street and Newman Road. Because when you get up past Low Street, it's a little wet spot, but it's not the hollow.
Okay. Okay.
And it's quite a line, so. 27.
But that's a good point.
They
That's
moved
right.
that
That was
way down
another
to-
mill site.
Lee's Bridge. Lee's Bridge was first Short, then it was Pearson. And Short built the mill, Pearson continued the mill, put another sawmill there. 1813, that mill burned, so we moved it 100 rods southwest to what became Knight's Crossing. So Lee owned Pearson's Hill, it became Lee's Hill. So that's why it's marked there today. But there was no mill there then, the mills had burned.
Now, those must have both been tidal mills.
They were tidal mills and they had reservoirs. And the only thing not covered I got the original contract. And the only thing that wasn't covered by the contract was the construction of that retention. Whatever it was.
I didn't know there was tidal mills that even
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Short, it was like 16, I think in 87 that Short actually bought it from Richard Jackman and put a mill there. And he took the house from across the street, dragged it up on the hill, what became Lee's Hill. Well, it was Short and then Pearson and then Lee. But he took the house from the other side that was in Short's Hollow, pulled it up on the hill. And there's a hill behind there now that's not on this map, and I don't know what we're calling it. The new dump hill? That's what we call it. We call it Mount Dump. We call it Mount Dump, but I'm just wondering.
There's Old Town Hill, that's Newtown Hill.
Well, Newtown, Newtown Hill.
I don't
Mount
think that's
Dump.
too historic.
We call it Devil's Hill.
Because it's there.
Right there, Devil's.
Dan.
So there was a tidal mill on Pine Island Creek,
Yes.
and there was a tidal mill there, where you just mentioned, and that got moved to Knight's Crossing, so that's 3 tidal mills. What was the one on Cotton Creek? I don't think that was tidal, I think it was just inland from the road. But I'm not positive. But I know that there's structure where Cotton Creek comes out to Park River, there's structure there, and it's called tide gates here. I don't know what it is, but there's pilings are still there, so.
Yeah, the pilings are still at Knight's Crossing too.
Oh, yeah, and they're still on Pine Island Creek, yeah.
Yeah, Pine Island, that was Adams on that, did they, Pine Island Creek?
I don't know. I went to a thing at the library on tide mills in Salisbury, and I was interested because I knew we had lots of tide mills here, and I think it was pretty common. They came from England, he explained it, were you there?
Yeah, they were really common.
Yeah, he explained, they brought them over from England, the whole concept.
There's actually evidence of a dike out on Kent's Island, it's not in this map, it's on another map, which they diked for some reason. I mean, whether it was so the animals could get in there and not get stuck, so they held some of the water back, I don't know. But it's not on this map, I'm thinking of another map.
What about something, we haven't said much about Plum Island tonight. What about the great hotels on Plum Island?
Yeah, it's right where Angie's is, Connor, Old Point Road, and Plum Island Turnpike, and what's next, Central Boulevard there.
That's what they call it.
That's where the Great Plum Island Hotel was. There's a
That-
lot of photos of that around,
Yeah.
so.
So that was called the Great Hotel?
No.
The Great
No,
Hotel?
Plum Island Hotel.
Plum Island Hotel.
Yeah. Yeah, my grandfather ran that for a short while. He was not the owner, but.
Now, was there other hotels out
Great,
there?
great, I don't know how many greats. Were there other hotels down there?
There were other hotels
Yeah,
down,
but
those
they were in
sometimes with a
Ipswich.
reservation.
Yeah, Grape Island and the Bluffs.
Yep, right. Yeah,
There were
right.
2 on Grape Island and there was
Yep.
1 on the Bluffs.
Wonder if we ever can find any
You get the
record
gold
pictures of
The
those.
what?
All
Yeah,
There were lots of pictures.
Oh, wow, what was that? Yeah, that's
There
pretty
were
good.
more
Yeah,
things
yeah.
on the Newbury, I mean, if you go in the non-refuge area of Plum Island, and you just go to Nancy Weir's book, there was a pavilion out there, there were
Yeah,
a
that
bunch
was
of
in
things
the
out
top of
there.
the center.
That I don't know how much of that you want on here, but there were some other big structures.
Okay.
And there's all of ours. The oldest building left.
But that's not
It was a
Newbury.
farmland.
Huh?
That's not Newbury.
Certainly is. It's at the center.
Oliver House? No. that's
No.
not-
Oh, no, sorry.
It's gone. It's
Thinking of
crazy.
all the houses down in here. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Bennett Hill, I'm thinking.
Oh.
Bennett
Down
Hill.
the house, the earliest house, I think, in town is in Little's Lane. Maybe it's
And I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you were catching it or not, but
Little, she gave it
Burgess,
to, thinks
on Plum Island, he was a competitor to Wright
Spencer's
Brothers.
Little Farm?
Spencer.
And he did
That's the one.
a lot of testing on
Is that
Plum Island. Actually did it on the marsh,
Should be.
south of the turnpike.
Uh-huh.
It's the
Parallel-
lanes
parallel
on here,
with-
the houses. that-
Parallel with
the house should
Sunset
definitely
Boulevard, but he
should
was
be.
out on the marsh,
Little's
he did
Lane.
lots of test flights out there. And they have a museum, you know, at the airport.
It'd be right there.
Yes, I've heard of the airport
And-
museum. So, was Burgess, you said?
Yeah,
Burgess?
Starling Burgess was his name, and his hangar and a wooden runway were at the edge of the dunes near parking lot number 2. And there's a plaque out in the refuge that gives a little bit of the story
Is
of
it? Oh, that's
Starling. And his wife, their granddaughter is a famous children's literature illustrator, I can't remember her name now. An interesting guy, they were considered to be bohemian because he and his wife lived out in the hangar.
but he was a boat builder.
That's right, and after they left here, they went to Marshall, I
Yeah.
think. So,
And he branched off. He decided he wanted to try
Beginning
to
of
fly.
flight.
I can give you, I'll send you a little, what I have on Starling Burgess.
Great, because I went to the library in our files, and because of the question of the airport and with the Pink House,
Yes.
and it was nominated to be on the federal list, the National Registry.
Okay.
So I have all the paperwork that was submitted, and they give all kinds of pictures and all kinds of history of the first, like the flights that were done right after the Kitty Hawk and all,
Okay.
and the people that were there, and so all that information I found.
Okay.
So I made a copy of it so that I left the original in file here, so,
Is that the Plum Island Airport?
yes.
I had never been to that museum.
No, I believe them. I gotta go there.
It's
I made
very
it.
small, but it's pretty informative.
Yeah.
I
that's what I
didn't
said.
even know it was there
Lots of-
until I read that paperwork.
At this time of year, you might not be able to get in during the week. In the summer, there's usually somebody there during the week, but now it's a little quieter. But I think there's usually somebody on the weekend. Shall we include the Pink House on here?
Oh, come on.
No, you know what? If,
Just call it motif number 2. That's
well,
what
I was just
we're
thinking,
doing
you
now.
know, thankfully, they did get that year, but when it's gone, people might want to know where it was. That's what I'm thinking. It was built in what, the 1920s? 20s. Yeah, I mean, is that?
I don't know, the other one's gone, and the old,
Well, I mean, what's history? To Dawn, the 1920s is a
Well, that's
long,
true.
long time ago.
It is, isn't it?
You know, to some of us, well, it was still a long time ago.
It's not old enough to sound it.
But I mean, you know, things, you know, are all relative. I mean, we're not talking about only things that are from the 1600s.
And there's so many photos done with the pink house that I just think that people will recognize Plum Island and Newbury because of the house. And maybe we should at least have a mark for it.
It's historic in that it's,
Well, that's just it, I can't find anything real historical on it, other than
The
than
pink house?
wonderful memories,
The
you
pink
know?
house?
The pink house.
Yeah, but we just need a little bit, I'm looking into it for them, but
I'm trying to think, I don't remember it as a kid, but yeah, I think I know why, because it wasn't pink. It
Start,
wasn't pink. Yeah, it wasn't
when
pink.
it was Start Realty or before
Yeah.
that.
It wasn't pink.
what was it?
I always remember.
Well, our house used to be almost white
David
after
said it
3 or
was
4
white,
years
so-
too, but it
David
was
says
pink.
white.
It was still-
What about the horse racing track?
Oh, dear.
Miss Dibbles,
Practice track.
Practice track.
Practice track, yeah.
Something that people in Newbury never knew we had.
Oh, yeah, I got a picture of that.
Where about, that was off of 1A.
Yeah.
Right, the barn,
the barn's still
the
there.
barn that they just, we had a meeting about the barn.
The High Road, 255 High Road?
Yeah, yeah, and I just saw a scrapbook full of plays that went on in that barn, when Bushy owned it.
She owned that barn too?
That was
Yeah.
the play, yeah, that's where they put on all the performances. I just saw a really nice scrapbook.
So the horse practice track is basically just a private track?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can remember down there running horses and seeing people with stopwatches, and I thought, wondered, what the hell are they doing?
Really?
But, yeah, they tried the horses out there. She had quite a breed of good horses, and I don't know whether she had any Triple Crown winners, but.
So that was my answer, you got an answer on that.
Even though
She won a lot of races. She did the stagecoach races, the whole tally-ho. She won more as a woman than any,
she was in carriage.
yeah.
Coaching 4 through the Lincoln Tunnel, right? She won that.
Yeah, she won a couple of big races. I mean, I have to get more of them. There's a nice map of whatever races that she did that was in New York.
There's a scrapbook in the files there that has all clippings from the newspapers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
I remember. Must have been her family that donated it. Yep.
Did we get any of the ribbons that were out in the barn? All the blue ribbons?
You know, the Historical Society got a box of them,
Oh, good.
but no, it was, I had been in the barn. I think Joni, actually, you took me through many years ago. And there was only one case, and there were no blue ribbons. It was all the lower, and they're really bad shape.
There were two. There was the front route on
Yeah,
Newbury Road.
what we got
one
there
around the corner. Okay.
It wasn't.
I was in about 7.
There is a nice trophy there, though, a flowing gold trophy that they picked up a few years ago.
There must be some photographs of her.
They had a nice room for her. They just took the room away a few years ago.
There's someone in Hamilton who shared information with each. Let's look up.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
What was the name?
We don't have it.
What is it?
Got a bushy, a book.
What was it, Joni? What was the name of the book?
I don't know, what it was, it came from some of the financial people, whose wife was a horsewoman, and she had a lot of, when Vaughn and I did that event for Saving the Lonely Green.
Yeah.
She brought that, and I kind of shared it with Dr. Hamani. I just have to recollect.
I know that the
Yeah,
Historical
tourism
Society
bar,
did do a bulletin
reservation.
just on her. The Historical Society at one point did a bulletin on just her, and the bulletin was, somebody did a lecture. I'll see if I can pull that up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
it's better.
It was a modern book. I met the woman too. I can't
Might
remember.
Google it, then it's a.
Holly, this Holly something, Holly. So if you're doing turn of the century, you should be doing Richardson Pittsburgh House.
Oh, yeah, on
Orchard Street.
Isabel Hoop's house, she was the one who built it. And she lived there, she was head of a museum.
And we're in right now.
Radcliffe graduate, head of a museum of science in Boston. And that
Yes.
single one.
Where is that?
And also,
You find the big room
I'm
one
sure you
side.
have this too in Byfield, Riverview Farm here.
Big
Yes,
Rickens.
Riverview Farm.
The one right across the way of the river.
Yep.
It's got brick right here.
Oh, that's one. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And also the Witham House, which.
Oh, right, I bet that's what,
Yeah,
yeah, that should, the Witham House should be, yeah,
This one has.
Yeah. yeah.
Yes.
Or
No,
Newbury.
Newbury.
Yeah, so that's not
It's still there.
It's right next to 39.
Oh, yeah,
And then the schoolhouse is below 39.
yeah.
And on the way to Richards is
It's next to
one of
the
the
meeting house.
earliest houses. It's as early
It's right
as
next to it.
before our house is
Give us that.
1600s. And it's on the corner as you go.
Oh,
All the
Oh.
two doors.
Two
Two
doors,
doors, yeah.
houses, and it's owned by Neil, Emily, and Maria Costello, and they restored it. It's really, it's very practical, very practical. Yes, yeah. Where is it?
It's right on the sharp corner.
Yeah, it's gotta be the
going down
sharp turn.
Orchard
Yep.
Street.
Yep.
It almost looks like a Trinity Garden. It's a very,
Yeah, and your garage is on the other side.
Yeah, right, Joan, there,
Yeah,
and Great Meadow Fields are
I
behind
read
it.
that.
Behind it's beautiful, yeah, I walk through there. Yeah, it's a nice place
Fred,
to
do
walk
you-
down there, go down.
What else do you have?
What else do I have?
It's pretty. So that should go.
There's a lot of stuff on here I don't think belongs on here, and it's all these clam
The
flats.
Great Meadows.
I mean-
So take some of the clam flats off.
I would take the clam flats off. They're very interesting to people digging clams, but I don't think they're interested.
Yeah,
I
we'll
don't
just,
think the general public is
right,
interested.
archive the old map, so if somebody's wants to look it up to find.
But I will say, you got a clam flat here called High Sandy Clam Flat. But of importance might be High Sandy, which is the highest point of Plum Island. And in World War II, it had I call it a pillbox, but it wasn't a pillbox, but it had a concrete lookout on it, which they used in World War II. Maybe World War I, I don't know, but World War II, I know for a fact, looking out for submarines.
So
or whatever.
High Sandy,
Hi Sandy, yeah.
High Sandy had a military lookout point.
Oh, I got cramp.
Is that the top of Old Town
Hey,
Hill?
cramps and legs.
No, the Plum Island, highest point on Plum Island.
Old Town Hill was also a military post in World War II.
Which one
Right.
was Joan?
Old Town Hill, the
Yeah.
top of Old Town Hill was
Was
a
a lookout.
military lookout point too.
Really? That I'm not aware of. Is that right?
Military lookout for what?
For, what,
From the German subs coming up.
Well, those days, Nancy, they had to at least have a periscope up. I mean, they had to come up for air.
What the observation?
They sunk one.
Trees low and everything like that.
That's
No.
Yeah.
it wouldn't
No, well, they sunk one out
Those
here.
old pictures, the whole thing was big.
Is it still there?
Years ago, but it's still
Yeah.
inside, it was
Yeah.
crazy.
On the walking
Yeah.
path? On the walking path?
24, putting back.
Sun to sub out.
24, Pudding Bag Lane.
That house.
I don't know what that is.
You know, I've read a story about Pudding Bag Lane, but it was actually in West Newbury. And it was the boys stealing the pudding bag off the windowsill. The woman took the pudding bag out of the steam, and the boys stole the pudding bag, and it was so hot they dropped it and started kicking it down the road.
But it
And
was
that's how it
there.
became Pudding Bag Lane. But, like I said, I found reference of it in West Newbury, not in.
Could be wrong. That's just like Red Gate Crossing, which is in Rowland, not Newbury.
And Red Gate Road, right?
So let's,
Yeah, Red Gate Road is in
let's
Rowland.
finish Pudding Bag. Are we gonna take that off? Does anybody else have input on Pudding
What number
Bag?
is
24. 24. It's on Little Old Town Hill.
Pudding bag.
Pudding Bag Lane.
I want to buy the pudding.
So we're
I
gonna,
don't think anybody's,
nobody's
nowadays-
speaking up with any
Where'd that name come from?
input on Pudding Bag Lane.
boys stole the pudding bag off the windowsill.
Pudding Bag Lane, never heard of that? All right, I think we'll nix that off. Yeah. Even, what was the next one? Red Card?
Red Gate,
Red Gate?
It's in Rowley, it's
Needs to be corrected.
What
Well,
number?
it's just not in Newbury.
What number? What number?
What number is that
And
even?
there was two of them.
58, I think.
58.
I think.
And 100.
Yeah, it's, I don't know anything about the 100.
And 100, yeah, they're both called the same thing.
I don't know anything about that.
So Red Gate Lane, we're gonna take that off.
Red Gate Crossing.
Red Gate Crossing,
It exists, but it's in route.
okay.
So does it show a lane here?
So 58 and 100, we're gonna take those out.
Maybe 100 is not the same thing as 58, because
No, right, they're two different, we don't know anything about 100.
100, yeah, I mean, this. So Red Gate.
But while we're on crossings,
Oh, this is the
while
one.
we're on crossings, we're talking railroads, and if this is a historic map, I
Okay,
believe these railroad lines should be labeled,
Yes, and I used to play with them.
the line that's used today should be labeled Eastern Division Railroad and called Acton. And the other one, which is the power line, should be labeled Western Division Railroad, because that's the way they were labeled in those days.
They was, right.
Yeah.
so that had nothing to do with the trolley.
No,
They
no,
parallel-
that was two ways to get to Boston.
They paralleled, they crossed paths.
Two different companies.
They crossed paths in Byfield.
Trees and
They crossed paths right next to the traffic circle in Newburyport. There was an X right there. You couldn't change from one to the other. They crossed.
But as it came through the power lines and down through Byfield.
Oh, yeah.
They crossed the Byfield, the Georgetown trolley.
Oh, well, yeah, well, the trolley went over and under these things, yeah, not under, went over these things in several places. Because there's still evidence of the trolley line that went over the Eastern Division, it's still there, you know where it is, David, I'm sure. North of Hanover Street, you can see where the abutment is, not the abutment, but the embankment. I guess the abutment is there, I think.
Scroll over.
Yeah, but you can see where the trolley line went over.
So the existing line now is Eastern Division, and where was the power lines coming down through Byfield was, what was it called?
Western Division.
Western Division.
They both ended up in Boston, but they were two competing companies. Eastern Division went to the railroad station and, well, went all the way to Portsmouth.
So the one that's
Actually,
going
it
like north to
went to
south
Portland
is
originally.
the Eastern Division.
And the Western Division ended in Newburyport, right at where CVS is now.
Okay.
Didn't go any further.
the other house is the Hughes house, next to me.
But that's neither here nor there. But I just like to see them labeled properly.
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, that is her name, she was named, no, she was married.
Gee, that's a good point. You could almost put these trolley lines on here with, the hatch pattern on where they went, on the streets that they went.
Used to be a trolley manufacturer up where CVS is now.
Is that right?
And, in Newburyport Historical Society, we came across it with small photos. And they built trolley cars there, they shipped them all over the place.
Right out the Western Division, yeah.
I only remember First National.
Yeah.
What is there any other corrections looking around the list?
Are people really attached to what John Martin's bedroom here? I mean,
Joe Martin's bedroom, 66.
yeah, where he used to sleep off his alcohol, I mean,
Yeah, right.
is it just me or?
Sounds like it should be removed,
Oh,
yeah.
you visit
That's like the
I
peach
just thought
orchard.
that was the ad, the peach
Visitors
orchard.
got it.
That's like the peach orchard. There were a lot of peach orchards in town. I don't know why this one is standing out.
I've seen a picture of it, when the peaches were actually there, but there's no sign of peaches there now.
No,
Walked this morning.
But Newbury was famous for its apples and onions,
yeah.
more than that.
Peaches, yeah. It's a nice
But
sheltered spot.
we did grow
I think, that's
peaches.
what it is.
Yeah.
And we did grow pears.
So anybody gonna have?
They
their
call that
straight out
Adams.
if we lose, the 66?
Okay, we'll take 66 off there. There's no
How about
objection.
26 is the peach orchard. I think we should take that off too.
Okay,
Well, and then, they call it Adams pasture. 66, well, I don't know, they don't even call it that, do they? 26?
66 is John Martin's.
26 is Peachwood.
That's Joe
The
Martin.
Peach Orchard, but we don't have anything else marked up there. I got the town book from 1677 when Jackman's got up there, and we're still there, I'd love to see it called back.
Is that what the Newbury stuff is?
Stuff to prove it. But we need something else up there. If we take that off, that leaves Old Town pretty bad.
What
Not
does?
really.
Well, there's a lot going up on.
Oh, you mean Old Town Hill? Well, that's because Old Town Hill isn't in the list.
Well,
It
that's,
shows on the map, but it is not in the list. And that's the Mother Hill.
I know, so that really
Lower
should be
Green is
there.
on the list.
And that house.
That's right, and neither is the upper.
What we should do is we should
Well, yeah, but-
move the
Say
number
we were-
16 over onto the
Let's
green,
define
and
it
say
as
Lower
that,
Green and
so.
Schoolhouse.
Yeah.
One at a time here, so we get them written down. So we need to
All right,
add.
Prominent Hills.
I wrote it down.
Prominent Hills. They have
Old Town
gravel hill here. They have a number for it though.
Yeah, I know.
So we
We
need
all
to get
know
Old
it's
Town
Gravel Hill,
Hill.
but it's
down.
really just part of Little Old Town Hill.
Where,
Leave
now where's
26
Old
there,
Town
just
Hill?
rename
It says Old Town Hill Reservation, right.
Oh, there it is. Couldn't find it, took a
it.
minute.
Just rename.
I mean, I know it's off Newman, I just couldn't find it.
That cider mill should be on because Dick Johnson, I gave material to Dick Johnson, he was working here, he really knows what he's on there.
I want to get to
And
the
they used to buy,
Old Town
it
Hall
was
site.
during Prohibition, they used to buy, they're still.
Oh,
That's
Littlefield?
on Middle
Is
Road.
that
My father, even in the 50s, when he started the gas station, he reported, he said he had people coming in, still looking for that golden something.
Golden
They had a name for it.
Golden glow.
They all went down there.
Golden Club.
Golden glow.
Well, it is, I think the site of.
That's on
it's
Middle
on,
Road?
isn't it?
It should be on
Yeah, I think it is on here.
What?
Number 63, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the farm that's still existing.
Adams Cider Mill, yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Adams Cider.
Adams Cider Mill.
and that's where that meeting house was
Yeah.
moved
And then there
to,
was
it's on that
Adams
property.
House.
Yeah, no, not on that property. Oh, yeah, it was moved to that
Yeah,
property.
it's
I
moved
want to
to
get to
that
that one. Yeah, I want to get
It's
to
still
that.
there.
Keep going, Fred.
Well, David and I were talking about this before. The Old Town Hall site is still pretty obvious on Middle Road. Across the street from where she's talking about, there's a lot there that's bounded by stone walls. It's what's probably about 5,000 square feet. I don't know. It's a very small lot. It's the site of Town Hall early on. Maybe not that early on. Not
Halfway
that,
between Newbury and halfway between Byfield.
yeah, not that early on, actually, because the early on one was up on,
Fred, what number is that?
up off Station.
What number is that near on the map?
It's near 63.
That's, you're talking Middle in Boston.
Middle Road. Middle Road. Not in Boston, no. Further, further.
I think we have a picture of that on the website too,
Well, no.
that shows a trolley going by it in the building.
David says the building is still standing,
Yes, it is.
but it's not on the lot.
But it's moved over
That's
onto
right.
Adams's property.
Did a trolley go right in front of it
Yeah.
years past?
Yeah, I would say so. Sure.
Yeah, I've got a photo of
Just
that.
saying it's near
I've
that.
got a photo of that.
Sure.
It's down the street, across the street.
It's right on the trolley.
See where 63 is, Nancy, it's on Jan?
Okay, what's 64? Adams Town.
Yeah, they call it Adams Valley, it's the Farms District.
That building is right there
So it's
today.
somewhere in between these.
That's how they saved buildings in the old days. They just moved them, you
Well,
know.
they didn't have any wires, they didn't have.
Well, right,
roads, you
right,
know, It
right.
was easy, and all the trees were cut down for pasture.
Right.
A boat builder.
Right.
So that cider mill, they travel from far and wide, not only to get the cider, but also to process the apples. The wagons of apples would carry them to the second, up that hill, into the top of the mill. It was a multi-story mill.
I'm sure.
And the wagons would pour the apples in the top, and they would pass down and be processed down below.
I don't, did you ever see that mill? I never saw that mill.
It's still together. I went, what's his name showed me a couple years ago.
My father would used to take me with the Dodgers.
What's the guy's name? What's Don?
That was a big
Yeah,
guy.
he showed me. It looks like,
They shut the door when it closed?
Yeah,
and they-
51.
Yep. There's a few rooms over there.
yeah, he showed me around. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It literally- the only
Rooms
thing-
like that. They shut the doors and,
Yeah, the single piston engines or whatever, or steam powered, they're still fully intact in the basement. It literally looks, all the leather, pulleys and
Yeah,
stuff
right.
are all still intact. There's like gloves. I mean, it's literally
Yeah.
looks like someone just left it.
Littlefield's, the one that we were just talking about. Plus, there's that great story about them finding the money in the loft,
Yeah, I think
the
that was
eaves.
another thing.
You know, I don't know how many times my husband filled that same barn with hay, but never poked around in the eaves, you know?
Well, they were pros.
But that's a great story, that's not gonna go away.
The other thing is there's two barber's chairs still up in that same barn, and that the lawyer, the head guy in Newburyport District Court used to come and drink cider and listen to the Red Sox. And Donnie Cole told me about that, so they're both still there.
Judge Jones, was it?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah. So,
My grandfather used to take me out to the Adamses on a Sunday morning. I never could figure out why I couldn't drink out of the same barrel they were. Many years later, I figured that one out.
That's a great barn.
That's
Is that the one when you, after you turn, take a left?
With my.
Right past the Mile
Yeah.
and that big,
Yes.
huge complex of buildings.
Yes,
That's it.
yeah.
Oh, I love
That's
this.
what,
Right
what was
around
the
in
movie,
there.
the movie they just made in there?
Joy.
Joy, yeah.
Joy was
I would
They
have
made a
loved to
movie.
be going around.
Yeah.
Are those fields?
Yeah, you won't recognize it.
Right.
They took her living room and made it a bedroom.
Joy.
They had crack in the ceilings, they had so much weight upstairs, they fixed that.
Jennifer.
Those fields there, those were onions, correct?
Yeah,
I don't know.
they use,
The one in
You know,
between middle
actually,
and Route 1.
I've read some,
I read in the book, there's a picture of that farm, it shows the Newbury onion field,
I
that
think
barn
that-
in the background.
and you drove.
do you think that was, I thought it was, Welch's down at, Spencer Pierce. I thought that's where that was taken.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. I did read some account books from the Adams farm. I think it was 1863 through 65, and they mentioned many different kind of apples.
That's okay.
And they were loading the apples into the barrels to go to Knight's Crossing and put them on a train. But I don't remember onions.
Some of the most famous apple trees in the country are right, seated originally on Orchard Street, which we remember at Bulgaris's farm, right there in that field. And Longfellow's, when you pick up a packet of, trying to think what was said on the packet, was it Longfellow seeds? The seed talking about the original seeds, that talking about the trees from Byfield, the original seeds. This is 300 years ago where these trees came from, and they're still, you go and order these quality seeds, and they say Longfellow on them. This is what they're talking about, is the Longfellow Orchard, which is the first hill on Orchard Street coming from Central Street.
Have you gone behind there, Channing? Are they still alive?
There is stragglers of trees still there.
Yeah.
There is apple trees on the bottom half where they don't grow the corn going
Right.
down the hill.
Yeah.
There is pieces of apple trees still there.
But
Those apple trees are 300 years old.
Yeah, but traditionally, you don't
Highfields, I think.
You don't
No.
use the rootstock
Orchard Street.
to produce the apples. You graft a particular type of apple onto a good solid rootstock. Maybe that's the good solid rootstock is this tree, because that's how you do apples. You graft on a variety, or maybe more than one variety onto the tree, and that's what you get, but you need a good solid rootstock.
where is this? Longfellow, where is this?
This is coming off of Central onto Orchard and Byfield.
Take it right, yeah.
As you go up the hill on your left, there's this big cornfield there, but to the side of the cornfield and going down the hill is the apple orchard. And that knoll was Longfellow Farm, and also the Adams House, which is on Pearson Drive, that those families merged there, but that was Wadsworth Longfellow's great-great-grandfather. Longfellow's.
So was it Michael Garris's like that little grown up spot?
That's number 93.
Longfellow Hill, we have no record of the house that was originally there.
Is that like where Bill Garris, they own that property that's like all
Yes.
like
That was
full brush?
Mike Bulgaris's uncle, and that.
So that little, like, that grown-up area is where you're talking about, right around there?
The whole crest of the hill to the left, I think there's 25 plus acres there.
Yeah.
And that was Longfellow Hill,
Over here.
and there was a big, what they call a mansion house
Yeah.
out back. There's talk of the mansion house and the granite post, hitching post in front of the house. I cannot find any record or picture or anything of the original house. It gets confused with the Adams house, which still exists on Pearson Drive. But the Adams house is where the recently wed daughter went. That was the Adams house over there. The Longfellow house was somewhere in that field. And then there was later houses in front of it. But no record to be found at this point. Another research project.
Yeah.
But very famous, the Adams house and the Longfellow house right there.
Now, is that the Highfields, like behind them?
Highfield Farm. Highfield Farm. And it's started out as Longfellow and then Adams, the period Adams house next to it. But there is talk of Highfield Farm. And it's given numerous different names. Of course, that road, Orchard Street, was Highfield Road before it was Orchard Street. So,
That's interesting, because it's actually a road over there.
so
Yeah,
then
it was-
Highfield
it was-
went further down. Had you seen anything else about what we're talking about that I missed?
Oh, I'm gonna take a ride, because I just had about an hour this afternoon to really look over the list, and I'm gonna comb around a little bit, because that's.
Because there was,
I think we've missed a lot, just from talking tonight. I think we missed a lot of buildings, and so this is a big chore.
It would be nice to have them on the map with the different.
Actually, you can go see it.
well, having this, now that we're transcribing this over to electronics, we'll be able to add it, we'll be able to do this once a year. And we'll print the map and update it and also make it electronically available for visitors in addition to having the map. Because we've got this on electronic copy now, so now we can edit it and just keep adding to it on a regular basis without a problem. Is there anything else anybody wants to add tonight?
Yeah, I have a problem with 94, you call it the Falls, and I look over here, and where did I see the Falls? And it says, a grist mill and 6 acres were purchased on March 1794 at this location. But this location was the first dam for power dam on the river. If you look up in Congress, that was Dummer. Bought that in 1630 something, 1630 something. So this was 16, it should be started in 1630 something.
Dummer was grinding corn, grist. That was mid-1600.
Yeah, right,
That was
exactly.
the first mill that was authorized, if I remember reading.
Right, right,
No, at Central Street by my house.
right,
Dummer and Moody were in a partnership to grind corn.
right, but that should be,
Mid-1600s.
Where is your house?
Orchard and Central.
Oh, okay.
Right
So
across from the,
Dummer was east of the river,
Victorian.
east of the falls. And Moody's were on the other side.
but that's, that's too late. I mean, that can
So
be on there
either-
also, but
I've
yeah.
got I did the sign
Good,
there, so
okay.
I've got all the notes on
All
that,
right,
so
good.
I'll update that. But
Falls.
the falls, the mill at the falls,
Update.
that started out as corn. What is listed there is also, it went to sawmill, and then they ground, they did everything there. Perkins started the first mechanical cutting of, machine cutting of cut nails, first in the country, the first right in Byfield.
Yeah.
The first machine to cut nails was at the falls. They said it was Perkins Farm. Now, They said it's in the, it wasn't, it isn't listed as at the falls, but listed as Perkins Farm, which I haven't found any more information, so it must be near.
Jacob Perkins, he lived on Freed Street. Remember?
That's a different,
It
that's,
was a Perkins. Had to be a different Perkins.
yeah.
The nail cutting machine?
It's
He
the,
was breast-
Well, you're right, he did.
He was the one that-
Pearson's
He did.
He did, he was, and he lived right on Freed Street.
Yeah, right.
Well, the mill owners
Grocery, Newbury.
were wealthy.
Right, so maybe the mill was over there, but he lived
the
in.
mill, yeah, so the mill was probably there for the water power.
Well, he developed the process. Whether he did it or not is another thing, I don't know. But he was the one who invented.
Right,
So
right.
the
That was
big-
after he invented the one, silver.
So they did all the wool felt and they ground chocolate there. This is at
Yeah.
Central Street Mills. They made pianos,
Are they the ones who went to England and
each,
looked at the mills in England and came back and copied it here? Because one of those did.
that was the Schofield. Schofield brothers went to England and brought the wool weaving equipment, was smuggled back in the coffee barrels. The Schofield brothers went over and brought back what they could and took diagrams of what they couldn't. And it was unloaded in Newburyport, but it was assembled at Central and Orchard Street, and it was put to work. The first woolen mill, beginning of the Industrial Revolution for textiles, was started at the woolen mill building at the Falls on Central Street. It was quickly moved after that to Newburyport, but its first assembly and operation was in that original building. So, and that was Paul Moody, who was the mechanical mastermind of setting up the weaving equipment in that building. Paul Moody tiptoed across Massachusetts and eventually into Connecticut. But Paul Moody was the mastermind behind the Lowell, and he went to Lawrence, I think Lawrence, Lowell, and then down Connecticut River Valley after that. But he was the father of part of the Industrial Revolution, starting right at the Moody House there. That was Paul Moody. And there's a book out. We bought Paul Moody's book, and it is, we donated it to the library this year.
Not yet.
We have it. It's on its way.
It's gathering severe dust in my house.
UPS sending it. So it will be momentarily available at the Newbury Library. Paul Moody, the Industrial Revolution, Paul Moody.
Ingenious machinist.
Ingenious machinist will
Because
soon be
we were waiting
available.
for the librarian to change over.
Okay.
You know who has extensive research on the mills, and he spent years on it, is David Mountain.
Mhm.
That was his talk that he gave, did the Industrial Revolution start in Byfield?
He was at ECU, and he did extensive, and Barbara must have his research.
We need to contact her.
You need to contact Barbara.
He did publish a small book,
I think.
and I've tried, I've been online trying to locate a copy.
Oh, I'm
I
gonna
can't.
try to call him.
They knew about the Larkin Mill too, across.
We have a small pond, number
Okay.
47,
47.
in Old Town, and it's Moody's Pond. I'm just saying Moody. I mean, does anybody really care that it's Moody's Pond?
I know, there's a lot of them.
Well, the Moody did live on that corner, back in,
It was,
at the first settlement.
You got Wells Pond here, and
Moody
it's
was the
labeled, but
first-
it's not.
The first
not
teacher
mentioned.
of Governor Dummer.
right.
See his building.
But that pond has on there.
Yeah.
That pond's pretty dry up now.
Yeah. When was that?
Well, they should, they're all right.
But the Moody Pond, that's near Upper Green.
No,
No, Low in Hay, corner of Low and Hay Street.
Okay.
Moody's was on, right on Hay and Low, on that hill, that rise.
The second or third generation of
Oh,
the Moody's
fuck.
moved over to the Old Town section after that, when they,
Yeah, that's like the second or third house on there, on that lot.
That's another
I'd
thing
like
we
to
have
know
to.
exactly where the schoolhouse was that was right near, Knight's Farm. What, right off Hay Street, or it dumped onto my road.
Go right up Hay Street, right? And look right in front of you.
And what's there?
It's that green house, that was the schoolhouse that was moved from Little's Lane down on A Street. I don't know if they call it Little's on here. Old Farm Road, it's the new development, Old Farm Way, Pritchard's.
Oh,
Pratt's, right.
Oh,
That's
Pratt.
that's where a schoolhouse was.
On the corner of High and Hay.
Yeah, but
He said it was
before then, it was down on Hay Street, where that new farm way
Oh,
is.
yeah, old.
Old Farm Way was right there, right almost across from Love. And then it was moved up to the top, it's still there.
It's a greenhouse?
Yep, it just had a fire. It looks like the schoolhouse, it almost looks like it was turned though, the other way. You're looking at it from the side,
Because this
front.
drives me mental.
And it
Every
was,
time I
it
go
just
by
had a
there.
fire there not too long ago.
Is it on Hay Street?
No, High Road.
Yeah, look right,
Spalding, city Spalding, remember?
just had a fire in there.
Yale.
Yeah.
I guess to figure out where that was, or is, because we've got a picture of that.
Yale was in my class.
No,
Lady with that.
They built a house
If you
down
look
there.
at
when
it,
they
when
closed
you-
The whites
look
moved
at it.
into.
you can see it.
David White, Dick White.
There was fire there, but no longer. It was more in the barn area, it looks like, you don't see the,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's a chicken side,
Yeah.
it's added on to the back.
All right.
The Rolfs, farm.
Yeah.
Where's it here? Number 47, where's near that?
Yeah.
On Eighth Street, or is it further down?
See where 46 is on Bay Street?
Yeah.
You see that unladen road?
Yep.
It was on the corner closer to High Road, so opposite 46. What is 46?
Yeah, what's 46? It's a good place.
Yeah, Herber's Lane. It was actually Noyce Lane years ago. It was Little's Lane, only it depended on who lived there.
So we should take that off too?
I would,
Yeah.
but I would definitely put, that's where the schoolhouse
So
was.
where 46 is where the old, where the other schoolhouse, district schoolhouse number 2 or whatever
It was, yeah. But I've seen that lane marked a lot of different ways. Noyce Lane, Little's Lane.
And that's not Old
Old
Farm.
Farm Way.
It's Old Farm now.
It is now,
Yeah, it is now, yeah.
Where the giant pumpkin was? Last year, they had one of those, top
They have-
European pumpkins.
Oh, yes, that's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Beaver's Lane here.
Yep, right, still not right.
Okay, so where 46 is,
That was, what's his name's farm?
Right.
Brad farm, murderer, yeah.
Mel Pratt, yeah.
What's
One of
46
the
supposed
goats
to be
sitting on the
then?
front steps.
that's where the old, where the second old, where the old schoolhouse, second one was, that's
On
got,
that side or on the other side of that road?
What's that?
On the other side. It was a
The other side, of the road. So it's across from the street.
No, I think he's saying it's on the other side of the road.
So we're gonna
So it's
rename
really on
that,
Low Street?
the second school.
Yeah, it's really on Willow Street.
That's tied up there.
But that's on a map, I got that on a map.
I do have something that came to mind.
okay,
Here.
low.
What about Dan Knight's ice pond, number 28?
Still there.
Oh,
Mine
that's
out
the
there
one,
too.
that's the one that Mac's gonna take water out of for her garden. Mac, the girl that's running stories.
Yeah, that's different. That's one that was kind of put in
Oh.
under the radar. That's a big one.
Well, it's
We're
pretty
pumping out of it
close
this
to
year.
this location.
No, well, it's field away. This one's, Daniel Knight, Luntz is in the, what they call the muster field. And the one she's gonna take out of is in between,
That's all right. We don't have to.
I do have something a question. We have been contacted by a person that has friends that the oldest surviving Moody from town is still in existence. And we want to set up an impromptu interview committee for meeting with this woman. and collecting information. So this is something that's going to be coming up. We're going to have to do it in the near future. But it's on our list. We're looking for, I would say, a couple of people that are knowledgeable about town. They could go through an interview process with this woman that is the oldest surviving Moody. I didn't know there was any left, but it must have been the last Moody that moved out of the Moody house on Central Street. So she's still with us, and I think it's her daughter has contacted us.
Contacted us, right?
How old is she?
Jan, did it say?
I don't even know what we're talking about.
Oh, I know.
The Moody
I don't
woman
remember
is
if
No,
that's-
I mean, what email? I didn't see an email.
94, I believe.
Yeah,
She
she was
left,
quite,
she left a note at the schoolhouse.
I read it. So
Oh.
it must have-
I don't remember seeing that.
She was gonna come to one of our meetings, and then we moved the site, and I forgot to send her an email. And so we were in a different place, and she missed us. So she hasn't gotten back.
So we want to set up that interview. If anybody has any ideas.
Where's the info? You don't know?
It must be. Get all my information.
Do we have any other additions for tonight?
It's in your email?
I didn't find it.
Joni?
I took Dick Johnson over the library today to because his parents had given a very large bequest, and the library forgotten about it. But anyway, that's when we found this. So Dick Johnson is 90, and he is absolutely wonderful, and I would like to ride around with Dick because we're very old friends.
Okay.
And he's a key, his mind is terrific. Yeah. That's going to be good. Yeah.
Channing, I'd do video stuff too. If we got some oral stuff, I'd definitely,
Okay.
because I did stuff with Brownie Taylor before he died and stuff
Okay.
like that, and I've done some with Jim Cunningham and people like that. So I'd definitely be down to talk to somebody like that, or the anybody that
Either.
comes and talks.
So this is what we need to get a hold of, is these different people, and get some interviews, and get this information, because there's quite a few gaps we still have.
Do we feel comfortable in
I
just
think
going?
we've got a lot accomplished tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming. And everybody start a file folder with information when you're reading, and print out and underline and save for the next time we do this. I think we'll probably do it again next year.